Secara daring sudah menjadi dunia baru kita. Mari tetap perhatikan keamanan dan keselamatan agar performa kerja tetap prima. Selamat bekerja secara daring. Tidak ada yang lebih penting dari jiwa manusia.
Okay, now ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention for our national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Selamat siang. Also, thank you for joining us today, the Honorable Bapak Rio Adrianto as General Manager of PLN Pusdiklat. Welcome to Knowledge Sharing with National University of Singapore about nature-based solutions, opportunities and challenges for reaching net zero emission target in 2060. This event is brought to you by PLN Corporate University in collaboration with National University of Singapore as one of the best-ranked university globally. Today's event is going to be held online, reaching all PLNers all across Indonesia. But before we begin, allow me to introduce myself as your MC today. My name is Natasha Anza, and I'm from PLN Icon Plus. It is truly a great honor to be able to guide you throughout this event today. Now, as we continue our journey through today's event, we turn our attention to a topic that lies at the heart of global sustainability efforts, nature-based solutions and their critical role in achieving our net zero emission targets by 2060. In this session, we will dig into the opportunities that nature-based solution helps to reach our net zero targets, as well as the challenges that must be addressed to ensure their effectiveness and scalability. Our esteemed speakers will share their expertise, insights, and experiences, providing us with a comprehensive understanding of how we can harness nature power in our fight against climate change. Now, let's embark on this important discussion and explore the vital role of nature-based solution in our collective effort to achieve a sustainable net zero future by 2060. Now, without further ado, let's proceed to the first agenda, the opening remarks by one and only the General Manager of PLN Pusdiklat. We cordially invite Bapak Rio Adrianto to deliver the opening speech.
Hi, thank you, Natasha.
Thank you,
Ya,
Pak.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Before we start, I would like to greet our honorable speakers from NUS, Mr. Roman Casaro, the Deputy Head Biological Science Department. And then I would like also to greet all the participants that attend this webinar series that hosted by PEL and Pusdiklat teams and also in collaboration with NUS. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome to this webinar series with the title of Nature-Based Solutions, the Opportunity and Challenge for Reaching Net Zero Emissions by 2060. And it is my great pleasure to host this important discussion on a topic that holds the key to our sustainable future. As we are gathered here, we are reminded by the urgency and the need to address this climate crisis, a challenge that transcends the border industry and across generation also. The goal of achieving the net zero emission by 2060 is both ambitious and necessary. And the nature-based solutions offer a promising path toward this objective. In this two-day webinar, we will explore a multi-phase opportunities on nature-based solution that provide and available nowadays. We will discuss on how the solution can be integrated into this existing framework, the economic benefit that they offer, and also the social impact that they create. Our expert here will share the insight on this subject and also share on us also the successful story or a case study on this topic and the potential for scaling up this effort globally. In today's discussion, we aim to provide comprehensive understanding on these opportunities on the subject and challenge by bringing together a thoughtful leader, practitioner, policymakers, stakeholder. Then we hope we can foster collaboration further to discuss about this specific topic and also to develop the competency of PLN teams on this specific subject. I would like again to thank to Mr. Roman Casaro for the time to share all of his knowledge and experience for us in this afternoon session. Again, thank you very much and enjoy the discussion. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Bapak Rio Adrianto, for your insightful remarks and inspiring words as always. Please give a round of applause for Bapak Rio. Okay, now before we moving on to the main session you've been waiting for, we would like to capture the spirit of this event with a group photo. We could really invite Bapak Rio Adrianto again, along with Professor Roman Carrasco, Kak Fitria Lely, and of course all PLNers to take a photo session. So don't shy away. We would like for you to please open up your camera for a bit to take a picture, okay? Okay, all good? Okay, ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. Okay, with thumbs up ya. Now with thumbs up. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you Bapak Rio Adrianto and all participants. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us proceed to the main event, that is sharing session on nature-based solution, opportunities and challenges for reaching net zero emission target in 2060. Throughout the session, we encourage your active participation. So feel free to ask questions, share your thoughts, and engage in this fruitful discussion. Our speakers and panelists, with their wealth of knowledge and experience, are here to share their expertise and provide valuable guidance. So let's make the most out of this opportunity to learn and grow together, shall we? Okay, after the end of the presentation, we invite all participants to join the quiz, which can be accessed through the chat box, yeah? And the lucky winner will receive the free journal access from our speaker today. And don't forget to use your full name and the PLN unit you've been working now, okay? Okay, so the session will be moderated by one and only Kak Fitria Leli Nurhayati, PLN Scholarship Awardee from National University of Singapore. So, shall we say hi to Kak Leli together? Hi, Kak Leli.
Hello, Azza.
Hello, how are you today, Kak Leli?
I'm good.
Okay, how's the weather in Singapore today?
I think the weather is most likely like in Jakarta. We are in the
Most
same
like in Jakarta,
equator, right? Yeah.
Okay. So I heard the Singaporean took at least like 20,000 steps a day. Is it true, Kak Leli?
Yeah, my average steps in Singapore is increased almost 200% recently.
100%. Okay, good for you. Okay, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Kak Leli, who brings the broad knowledge and expertise to the table. We're in for a treat with the insightful discussion. Kak Leli, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Azza. Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well today. So, welcome again to our seminar on nature-based climate solution. So, let me introduce myself first. I am Fitria Leli, a master student of biodiversity conservation and nature-based climate solution, and also formerly I am as assistant manager of quality at PT PLN Haliora Power. So today I am excited
Recording
to be
in
your
progress.
moderator. So today I'm excited to be your moderator for our first global expert series. We are going to dive into some fascinating discussion about how nature can help us tackle the challenge of climate change. To kick off, we have an incredible keynote speaker, Professor Roman Carrasco. Roman is an associate professor at the National University of Singapore. He is passionate about the environmental, economic, and business sustainability, and also has some interesting insight to be shared today. Hello, Prof. Roman.
Hello, thank you. Thank you everyone for the invite. Terima kasih, thank you.
Okay, how are you, Prof?
Yeah, I'm fine. Looking forward to sharing and meeting everyone.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, thank you, Prof, for joining with us. I know this is a busy time since we are now at the end of the final semester. So without further ado, let's warmly welcome Roman. The stage is yours.
Okay, I will share my screen. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, Prof. All good.
Everything okay? Can hear me okay? Okay, thank you very much for the invite. It's very exciting for me to share to PLN and to open up the Global Expert Series. My name is Roman Carrasco. I'm associate professor at the National University of Singapore. And today I will be sharing about nature-based solutions and how they can help solve the climate change crisis, also the biodiversity crisis. So we will be talking about these two aspects that I believe will be quite relevant. So this is the index of my sharing. First, I will cover the current crisis, dual crisis, climate change and biodiversity loss. Then I will talk about the main governance frameworks for these two crises to set the stage. And then once we have set the stage, I will look into nature-based climate solutions and how they can help to mitigate climate change, meet our net zero targets, and then also contribute to biodiversity. But I will spend some time talking about the integrity of nature-based climate solutions, because they can be controversial. So how to make sure that the carbon credits that we purchase from nature-based climate solutions have a high quality. And then I will move towards the biodiversity crisis and talk about the relationships between business and biodiversity, and talk about the TNFD, which is the disclosure framework for businesses' risks from biodiversity. And we cross talking a little bit about what it means for a company to be nature positive. So, and a bit of carbon and biodiversity combined. Okay, so let's start with this dual crisis of climate change and biodiversity, and I call it dual crisis because both of them are interlinked together. And we talk about carbon, but carbon in the form of biomass comes also with the ecosystems and represents also biodiversity. Okay, so just some snapshots. So last year we saw record-breaking climate extremes. This, for example, the North Atlantic Ocean sea surface temperature. So we see that the red line last year is completely out of what we have been observing since we have records. And something similar happens with the world ocean sea surface temperature. This is very scary because as up to now, the oceans have been absorbing this excess heat produced through climate change. And once the oceans start to lose control of the heat, we might encounter ourselves in a runaway climate disaster situation. So we can see that climate change is starting to get out of control as of last year, and we expect many more extreme weather events and situations that will be quite detrimental to businesses and to people. Okay, so this is one crisis, and the only way we have to avert this crisis is to either reducing emissions or sequestering back the emissions of greenhouse gases, chiefly CO2. But combined to all these emissions, many of them related to destroying our ecosystems, will be the biodiversity loss crisis. Now there is consensus that we are entering the sixth mass extinction event. We are losing biodiversity much faster than the background rate. And across taxa, we will see here in red, most of the taxa are decreasing, or the ones that are increasing are very rare, right? So biodiversity has a very important role for biodiversity globally, and what we see in the world is also we are losing biodiversity and we are disrupting the climate, right? So this is the stage. These are the huge crises that our generation are facing. Now let's see what is the governance. What are we doing at the global level in terms of policy? We have two main global agreements. One would be the Paris Agreement, was agreed on 2016, which is determined to tackle climate change, to keep temperatures within limits that are compatible with economy, with thriving of humans. And then for biodiversity loss, a bit more than a year ago, we had the agreement in COP15 on the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So I will be presenting these two frameworks because I think they are relevant for companies worldwide that are trying to make an impact. Okay, so the Paris Agreement was quite instrumental because unlike the previous agreements like the Kyoto Protocol, was the one in which developing countries and developed countries came together and agreed that we had to do something about climate change. And one of the strengths of the Paris Agreement is what we call the nationally determined contributions, which means that each country has the flexibility to decide how much they are going to work towards reducing emissions and by when. And the only thing that the Paris agreements will ask is that countries always improve those pledges, right? So we start not very ambitious, but slowly we say, okay, we're going to become, for example, we're talking about net zero by 2060. And the aim of these nationally determined contributions is to keep temperature well below 2 degrees centigrade and have as much effort as possible to keep it below 1.5 degrees centigrade. And this is quite critical because once we go above 1.5 degrees centigrade, the impacts on the economy, on health, on ecosystems become much worse because we disrupt the climate substantially. So it's very important that we try to keep the temperature at bay. Okay, so the idea is that developing countries will peak emissions as soon as possible and then start declining with the idea of becoming net zero around 2050. Okay, so the countries are supposed to update, communicate their nationally determined contributions every 5 years. And in these contributions, they will commit to, we want to conserve our carbon sinks, for example, our forests, our mangroves, and then we are going to enhance through projects to restore the carbon. Okay, and even though it's pretty flexible, it has proven very effective because every country has been proposing increasingly ambitious nationally determined contributions, and that had put some peer pressure, and now every country is contributing. We are still far from proposing NDCs that are sufficient to stay below 1.5 degrees centigrade, but we expect that these ambitions will increase into the future. Okay, let me, so that covers the climate change governance setting. Let me talk a bit about the biodiversity setting, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which is more recent. It has the vision that by 2050, biodiversity is value, conserve, restore, and then we will maintain ecosystem services and a healthy planet that will be provide benefits essential for all people. So this is basically, we want to bend the curve of biodiversity loss. We want to turn biodiversity loss into recovery and gaining on what we were losing. Okay, so the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework has several goals and then a set of targets. Across the goals, we'll talk about maintaining ecosystem integrity, ecological connectivity, looking into genetic diversity, trying to stop the extinction of threatened species, and then restore ecosystems and ecosystem functions. This is quite important from the point of view of nature-based climate solutions that will come to help with that restoration. Also talks about resource sharing of genetic resources, which will be very relevant for Indonesia, closing the biodiversity finance gap. So it's all about the injustice of developed countries have to contribute to nature conservation in the same way that they should contribute to climate change mitigation in developing countries. So these are some of the targets. First target, focus on areas of high biodiversity importance, high ecological integrity. Target 2 and 3 are very interesting in that they set a very ambitious goal of restoring 30% of degraded land, and then protecting 30% of land and water by 2030 with adequate protected areas and recognizing indigenous traditional territories. And so this is going to be very important because we'll have more protection on land and water, but that's also going to put more pressure on areas that we are using for food production. So we need to be very efficient and strategic how to attain these massive restoration targets and protection while continue feeding our population. Target 8 introduces nature-based climate solutions as an idea to reduce the impacts of climate change. I will go more into detail later. And interestingly, target 15 for the first time at this global level calls for businesses to monitor the risks and impacts on biodiversity so that consumers can make decisions and decide whether the company is having a nature positive impacts. So the mindset now is much stronger on the role of companies also has an impact on biodiversity. Biodiversity also can put risks on companies, and this is something that consumers and investors ought to know. What's the situation? Okay, so it's a pretty strong landmark agreement that sets the stage for biodiversity. Okay, let me now go into nature-based climate solutions and how and whether they can help these two intertwined crises of carbon and biodiversity. Okay, so we have climate change as a major threat to humanity, and there are 4 ways in which we can try to seek solutions for climate change. I'm going to divide them between technical and nature-based. And the 2 of them can further be divided into avoidance, which means we are going to avoid emitting further greenhouse gases, and removal, which means of those greenhouse gases that are in the atmosphere, we're going to remove them from the atmosphere and we are going to store them back into the land. So, for example, a technical avoidance will be renewable energies, will be solar panels, windmills. It could be also geothermal, any form of renewable energy that will not will prevent us from having to burn fossil fuels to generate energy. A technical removal could be carbon capture, which is trapping the CO2 from the air and then either storing, maybe reducing it, in creating some form of fuel or injecting into the ground. This technology, however, is still being developed. It's quite expensive. And as of now, it cannot scale up as much. Unlike this one, which is a reality, actually renewables are now cheaper per kilowatt production than many fossil fuels. So they are becoming quite competitive. This technology is still not competitive, right? So it's not a immediate solution. Okay, how about nature-based solutions? So we can avoidance here means prevent destruction of ecosystems that contain carbon. So think for about peatland. If we allow a drain of peatland conversion, then there will be release of greenhouse gases. But if we don't convert the peat, then the carbon stays there. So in a way, we are avoiding those emissions by preserving the peat or preserving any other ecosystem. In terms of removal for nature-based climate solutions, will be restoring ecosystems that have been degraded. For example, the peat has been drained, has been cleared, there have been emissions, but if we block the canals, re-wet the pit, we allow for carbon to start accumulating again. So slowly we are bringing back those CO2 that is in the atmosphere, is sequestered by the plants, and then is stored in the pit again. So using natural processes, we can bring back that carbon into the soil carbon in this case, and above ground biomass carbon. In Indonesia, potential for nature-based climate solutions are huge, especially large areas of peat, areas of mangroves store a very large amount of carbon per unit of hectare. In terms of actual area, tropical forests are excellent also for carbon sequestration and accumulation. So there's a very high potential for nature-based climate solutions. But something that is particularly interesting about nature-based climate solutions is that they also help with biodiversity. So it's not just you are trying to prevent climate change, and by the way, as a very valuable byproduct, you also contribute to biodiversity. And this is what we call the biodiversity co-benefits. So once you have a project to try to restore a forest and they start planting the seedlings and they start growing, once they grow, they also become habitat for biodiversity that can recolonize the forest. So in this case, with one intervention, you solve 2 crises, so which is what makes nature-based climate solutions very special, in the sense that it's not only carbon, it's also contribution to biodiversity. So something that is become very hot debate these days is whether nature-based climate solutions can be used to generate carbon credits. And the idea is quite intuitive. Imagine that you are a company for which trying to reduce emissions becomes very costly. So perhaps it would make sense to ask somebody else to reduce the emissions for you. In this case, you could ask some landholders to say, okay, if you restore this forest, the carbon that you are sequestering in your forest, could you sell those carbon offsets, those carbon credits to me? And then I say, okay, I have both these carbon credits. So in a way, I am helping offset a part of my emissions that I cannot reduce myself through buying nature-based climate solutions credits. Okay, so this is quite trendy, and I think it's going to be very important because you can help solve climate change, biodiversity crisis at the same time that you help companies achieve net zero, reduce the emissions that they have by buying those offsets, right? So and we know that the pressure now is on trying to achieve this net zero, and there will be many companies looking into ways to do that. And one thing that companies have been looking at is buying these carbon credits, and the markets for carbon credits recognize that those nature-based climate solution credits come with co-benefits and typically will achieve a higher price premium. They are highly valued. So this is great. The only thing that we need to ensure is that those carbon credits that we buy are high integrity and they really remove or avoid the carbon emissions that they are supposed to do. Okay, I want to make a little diversion here to talk about net zero. So when we talk about net zero, there's a bit of confusion as to how to achieve net zero. So I'm going to follow the Science-Based Target Initiative. This target initiative is called like this because it follows the recommendations of the IPCC. The IPCC recommendations indicate that by 2030, we should be reducing emissions around 40% globally. And then by 2050, we should be close to reducing emissions to the point that we are net zero or very close to it. This is something very difficult, right? And then as a company, we could say, oh, how can I achieve net zero? I could reduce my emissions, right? Avoid emissions, turn more into renewable energy as the way to produce the electricity, or I could buy biodiversity credits. I could offset. But the SBTI is very clear here. The focus needs to be on reducing emissions first, up to 90%, and then the residual emissions that cannot be eliminated through the avoidance of emissions, then those you can look into into carbon offsets, into carbon credits. So the focus here is more on reducing emissions, and nature-based climate solutions will come at the end to help offset those emissions that are very, very costly to offset. So I want to make that distinction because the part of the debate is that if a company, for example, were to say, I'm emitting 1,000 tons of CO2, so I'm going to buy the equivalent of 1,000 tons of carbon credits, and I'm going to continue business as usual, that will not be the most effective way to mitigate climate change. The company should try very hard first to reduce the emissions. Okay, so you might see other terms like carbon neutrality that don't have the stringency of net zero as defined by SBTI. In carbon neutrality, the use of carbon offsets is allowed as much as you want. Okay, so nature-based climate solutions sound like they have a high potential, and we were talking just now about whether we can scale up, can we really solve climate change with nature-based climate solutions. These are some studies that have tried to answer how much of the solution we can get from nature. And nowadays, the global emissions annually are around 40 gigatons of CO2 equivalent. So studies, this is a landmark study by Griscom et al. They come up that nature-based climate solutions could generate around 23.8 gigatons per year. But this is only achievable with carbon price up to 100, which is quite high. If the carbon price has a more realistic value, like the current carbon prices that we see, of less than USD $10 per ton, we can achieve 3.8 gigatons per year, right? So this is around, if annual emissions are around 40, this is close to 10% of the solution. So nature-based climate solutions can provide around 10% of the solutions if we invest into them. The good news is that they are quite cheap. the good news is that they have very important biodiversity co-benefits. But the reality is that there is no way we can solve climate change relying on nature-based climate solutions, right? If somebody were to say that, they would be overselling nature-based climate solutions, which is not the reality. There have been other studies. This is a study in Nature last year, and they also come to show that there's a lot of potential to work with existing forests to get them to sequester more carbon through helping restore, and also in areas where there are no forests. But bear in mind that when we talk about nature-based climate solutions, we have the land we have, and land needs to be used also for food production. And there will be some tension there, right? We cannot just go anywhere and start restoring and planting trees. Some areas are not, need to be kept as agriculture. So this is the map of the potential of nature-based climate solutions. And the darker the green color here means the most potential for nature-based climate solutions. If you notice here, Indonesia is super dark green color, one of the darkest in the world, which means that Indonesia is fantastic for nature-based climate solutions. It has a huge potential, and it would be the right thing that there will be payment for that restoration of nature, conservation of nature in a country like Indonesia that is super important for biodiversity and for carbon. So in that sense, huge potential. And for companies based in Indonesia that want to buy nature-based climate solutions within Indonesia, that should not be a problem with the nationally determined contributions. It will be a part of the helping the country to meet the national determined contributions. So it will be a good way to support internally in the country. Indonesia has many projects already. I took this from the registry from Verra. That is one of the main registries for nature-based climate solutions projects. And these are just examples of nature-based climate solutions projects in Indonesia. I think we are moving at a very small fraction of the potential. So huge potential for scaling up. So we have projects from mangrove restoration, Kupu project, another one on mangrove, Riau ecosystem restoration. There are also about conservation. There are several peat rewetting restoration projects. So, and these are very high profile. And the international community really appreciates the high quality of the projects that there are in Indonesia. But again, this is a very small part of the potential that we have to scale up nature-based climate solutions in Indonesia. In the same way, another way that we can think that might be relevant for you is that we have also the potential to generate carbon credits using technical avoidance. So these are small projects based in hydropower, establishment, geothermal, solar panels, wind. So all these projects, if you demonstrate that you are changing the way you generate electricity, and you are preventing carbon emissions, you are generating also carbon credits. And I think that will be also very relevant for a very important company like yours in this area on the energy transition. Okay, so nature-based climate solutions, we were saying about 10% of the problem, which is a very big part of the solution. The problem here is that we need to make sure that if we are going to buy some nature-based climate solution carbon credit, that we are buying the right thing, right? We don't want to be caught in a situation in which the carbon that was supposed to be avoided or sequestered has not occurred. Okay, so this has been an area of high controversy. So we need to prevent this controversy, we need to check the integrity, the quality of the carbon credits. We do that by verifying several aspects of the carbon credit. Probably the most important aspect, the one that tends to generate the controversy, is the additionality. Additionality is a bit of a slippery concept, and the idea involves a counterfactual, right? So we have to think what would have happened without the project, right? And then we have to say, because we implemented these nature-based climate solutions, now we have more carbon. sequestered, or we have prevented carbon emissions. And then we have to prove that if we hadn't had this project here, there would have been more carbon emissions. Of course, this is very hard to do, right? Because we are talking about things that did not happen, right? We have to say, if this had not happened, this other carbon emissions trajectory will have been follow. But how do you demonstrate something that has not happened? That is very complicated. Okay, so there are several ways to try to do this. So one way, for example, will be to show that there are barriers, right? And say, okay, imagine that we are talking of a concession, right? A government has given a concession to turn a forest into a plantation. So we know that because it's a concession, it's gonna be cut, the forest, right? So that shows that, it's clear that if we don't do something, the forest will get cut, right? So that's a way to prove additionality. Another way to prove is using financial analysis. So you could say oil palm has these revenues per hectare. It's much higher than the revenues of the forest. So for the land owner, it makes sense to have the oil palm. It doesn't make sense to have the forest because they make more money from the oil palm. But then you say, okay, if we were to give money, carbon credits for preserving the forest, then the revenues will be higher than the oil palm. So from being less interesting from the landowner, after you provide the carbon credits payment, now the landowner says, actually, now it's a better business than the oil palm. I'm going to keep the forest. In that case, those extra payment to the landowner have changed the outcome, right? From no forest, now you have a forest. That is additionality. It's only because we pay the farmer, then we preserve the forest, right? If not, the forest will be gone. So that's the idea with additionality. So how do we prove that what we are doing is changing things, these nature-based climate solutions? One typical way to do this is to compare with a baseline. So you can look at the historical baseline. For example, imagine that this is my historical deforestation. I calculate the average, and then I get this baseline here, the black line. And then I will say deforestation was at this rate. I expect it will continue like this. When I implemented the project, deforestation now is at this rate. So presumably, if deforestation rate had continued the same, now I would have generated all these carbon credits because deforestation has lowered. So we are assuming here that because of the project, there has been a drop in the deforestation rate. Okay. This will be the more conservative way. Other less conservative will be deforestation rate is increasing. So now extrapolate. I think that it's going to continue increasing. When I implement the project is here. So all this will be my carbon credits. And these carbon credits I can sell to companies to help them offset their emissions. Okay, so this is, of course, based on some assumptions that can be disputed. And this is what happened. Probably you have seen, created a lot of controversy. This is a news piece from The Guardian in which they show that 90% of rainforest carbon offsets by Verra, the biggest providers, were worthless, right? This is very strong. So what they are saying is that the promise avoided of carbon emissions were not true. So that created a huge controversy in the voluntary carbon market. Okay, so what was the problem here? I don't know if you can see this in detail. So here in pink is the project area. Remember, we are trying to compare what would have happened if the project had not been there. So this is the project area, right? So this is where they implemented some measures, presumably to prevent deforestation, forest loss. So they have to say, okay, if we hadn't done this, this would have happened. So to do that, because we cannot do that in the same project area, we can look for a reference area, like a control, right? Think of your placebo effect for the vaccines. So this is the control, the reference area. And then you say, okay, if the deforestation rates in here are higher than in my project area will be doing something. My project is preventing deforestation. I will be generating carbon credits. It is additional, right? But do you notice anything strange here? Do you think we are comparing apples to apples? I don't know if I can see the chat. Yeah, chat is here. Anybody want to comment on the chat? Do you think we are comparing apples to apples? Is it a fair comparison? The project area with a reference area? If anybody wants to comment on the chat. Okay, maybe the chat is not working. But anyway, so what is the problem here? The reference area, this Iberia here, is a town, right? So the reference area has a town and has roads crossing through it. So we know that whenever there are roads, there's going to be more deforestation. So there are more people here, there are roads, all these dark areas are deforestation. Of course, the reference area is going to have more deforestation because they have a very different situation, right? So the project area is being compared against something that is not like the project area. It's an area that is meant to be developed. So in that case, they will say, oh yeah, we are generating carbon credits because deforestation has been lower. But you are not using a fair comparison. So in a way, you are selling hot air. You are not selling really carbon credits. Okay. Something similar happens with historical deforestation baseline, right? So here, gray columns means this is before the project was implemented. They calculate the historical deforestation rates in this orange sepia lines. And then in blue here are the years in which the project was implemented. So if somebody were to come here and say, oh, look, once they implemented the project, there was a drop in deforestation rates. This project is working, it's preventing emissions, it's really generating carbon credits. But notice something interesting here. This area here did not have carbon credits. The deforestation rates drop also in areas where there was no project. You see? So what this is telling us is that deforestation rates were meant to lower anyway. Right? It's not because you put a project that you drop deforestation. It's just that the deforestation had been quite high before. Once there is less area of forest left, it tends to slow down. That's natural. It doesn't mean that you have prevented deforestation. It was meant to go down. So they were selling carbon credits that were not additional. Okay, so what these researchers did is they use a more sophisticated way to control for confounders, like synthetic control analysis, and they were able to find fair areas that are matched to the project, right? So for example, here, project is red, the synthetic control is blue. So if red is below blue, means that the project is reducing deforestation, right? This blue is what the model predicts will have happened if no project, right? So in this case, yes, there are carbon credits being generated. Here also there are carbon credits being generated, but in this location is the opposite. Actually, the area that is protected by the forest here as well, is generating more carbon emissions. Okay, so the issue here is that the companies that were buying the carbon credits were trusting a way to analyze the additionality that was too simplistic. So when the researchers came and analyzed in more detail, they realized that it was not working. So my suggestion would be, if somebody were to buy carbon credits, is just hire some experts in counterfactual analysis to really analyze that the deforestation happening there, they avoid the deforestation is additional. And then you know you are safe, you don't get surprises like this. Okay, more ways to check that the carbon credit is it's going to be high quality. The carbon credit has to be permanent for nature-based climate solutions, which means that if you pay someone to preserve a forest, you need to expect that forest to be there for a long time, right? For many years, typically even more than 30 years. Because if not, it's a bit pointless. You pay to sequester carbon. If you're going to cut the forest in a few years' time, all that carbon is going back to the atmosphere. So it's like you are giving money for nothing, right? So imagine that I buy credits from this project, and then a few years later, there is a fire, and then all the forest is gone, right? So what happens to the carbon credits? By right, the money that I pay for that forest to grow and sequester carbon needs to be returned to me, because my carbon credits are not valid anymore. Those emissions, the CO2 is back to the atmosphere, right? So for projects to have high quality, they have to be permanent. They have to ensure that they will stay there for a long term. Okay, so this is the explanation for the permanence. And when we lost the forest in the project, we call that reversal. And the company that generated the carbon credits needs to have what is called a pool buffer account to be able to compensate for the loss of the sequestered carbon. Okay, another issue that is quite common is leakage. So imagine that I have these points here represent deforestation, historical deforestation. So I tend to have, this area has a lot of deforestation traditionally. And then I say, okay, I want to prevent this. So I'm going to create a nature-based climate solution project for conservation, right? So now I establish this project. I put my rangers. I say, okay, this area now is meant to be a forest. You cannot do logging here. Okay, after I do this, the deforestation stops, right? But then I start to observe deforestation here, here, here. It never happened before in these areas. But now suddenly I have all this deforestation, right? So what has happened here? I guess you can guess. So because I don't allow to deforest here anymore, the people are moving the deforestation outside my project. So in a way, I have just I have leaked the deforestation from outside the project area to other areas. Have I really reduced carbon emissions? No, not really, because deforestation continues. It just continues in a slightly different place, but the emissions continue, right? So my carbon credits generated are not really effective, right? So how to do this? When one implements a nature-based climate solution, you need to have some area, some leakage management areas. So for example, if this is my project, then I will have to monitor that around my projects there is not going to be extra deforestation. I need to manage. If by implementing my project, I'm going to prevent food production for local communities, I need to ensure that that food can come from other places. Maybe I will help the farmers to be able to produce more so that the food is produced at the same level at the same time that I conserve the forest. If I don't do that, it's likely that I will have leakage, and then my carbon credit is not very valuable. Okay, so I hope that gives you an overview of nature-based climate solutions carbon credits, how to check for high quality, right? So additionality, leakage, and permanence are some of the main ways to check. I'm going to now change gear and go to the other crisis, the biodiversity crisis. This is quite new, doesn't have as much tradition as carbon and reducing carbon emissions, but I think it's quite exciting for companies to start looking into this. And I'm going to talk about the task force on nature-related financial disclosures that was released just a few months ago, and that sets the standards for companies to communicate, disclose in their reports how nature affects them and how they affect nature, so that investors can make informed decisions. Okay, so some interesting study recently was indicating that about half of the global GDP relies on nature. Virtual reality, all of it relates, but in a direct fashion, many of it will relate on nature. If nature is not functioning, if your pollinators are not functioning, and if your flood prevention is not functioning, then economic activities are affected. Okay. They also broke it by sector. So here we have electricity, high reliance of nature as well. It could be different forms of electricity production, hydroelectricity, or avoiding disruption on the production systems. But bottom line, more sectors have quite reliance direct. But when you look at indirect through the supply chain, there will be almost every sector will have some relationship with nature and will be affected if ecosystem services are not provided. Okay, so the consensus now is that we need to broaden our horizon, not just think about carbon. We need to also look at biodiversity. Okay, and we are seeing this in Singapore. Now we have a disclosure of carbon emissions starting to become mandatory in many jurisdictions, things like that. It would be expected that in the future also disclosures of our relationship with biodiversity is also made. Okay, so TNFD has implemented an early adopters program in which many companies decide to pilot implementing this disclosure scheme. So this could be a good opportunity also for your company. And now 320 early adopters, all sorts of companies from around the world, although there's more focus in Europe, Asia, and the Pacific. And there is a lot of interest also in asset managers, banks being linked to this TNFD, and so that they can use it also to inform their investments. So TNFD also received quite a boost through the Global Biodiversity Framework, calling for business to disclose the impacts on biodiversity, dependencies on biodiversity. And the current situation is that most global executives have not started preparing their company to look at the risks from biodiversity and nature. So this TNFD, following this TNFD, is a systematic way to think about those risks, those dependencies, and a way to report them, and also to share how we plan to manage those risks, to mitigate the risks. Okay, so this framework uses double materiality, which is interesting because normally we will think about how businesses impact nature. Will be this one. So this company affects nature, people. So this could be the inside out. But now we are looking also at how nature impacts businesses, which is the outside in. So this could be a single materiality, but if we combine both, we have double materiality. And then this is a way to recognize that our businesses both impact nature, but nature also helps our businesses. So if we have a healthy planet, we can continue with our businesses without problem. What are the risks of nature? They are very varied, but broadly we can define them between physical and transition risk. So physical risk could be anything from landslides or floods or extreme heat weather events, cyclones that affects directly our production. Transition risks are more related to scandals. So for example, if a company were to buy a facility that led to deforestation or the local extinction to some species, there could be investors, consumers could be upset, could penalize that company, might need to comply more with environmental impact assessment, could be costly. So it's more related to regulation and consumer perception. But at the end of the day, if the ecosystem is stable, we have financial stability. If the ecosystem is disrupted, we have financial instability, right? And this is quite obvious with climate change, but it can also happen with biodiversity, especially for agribusinesses, companies relying on healthy ecosystems. Okay, so how do we disclose our relationship with nature? These are the four pillars. Governance, which will be indicating, in my company, who is in charge of assessing the impacts on biodiversity? How do they report to the board? How do the board take decisions related to biodiversity? And this is very similar to TCFD, which is the equivalent for climate, and it's the same, right? How do we account for climate? How the assessment of sustainability trickles down in our decision making. Okay, and then we have strategy, risk and impact management, metrics and targets. Let me go into, okay, this is an overview of all the different recommendations, but let me go into one by one. So in terms of a strategy, we will just disclose all these dependencies, right? So I need to have water that has a high quality for my operations, or I need to have roads that are not flooded for my operations, or that would create some dependencies. Or in terms of impacts, I would say, for example, I'm constructing this dam, so I'm gonna occupy these areas. That will be a type of impact. Or because I am having this operation, I can affect this certain species, right? Whatever is material for the company. And then after these are described, it sets the stage to identify how things can be improved. Okay, then we can also describe the resilience of the company. So what will happen if, for example, there will be a pollinator crisis, or what will happen if this area is going to have a landslide? Will we be able to continue providing electricity? Will we be able to continue operating in businesses if there is a very strong storm, or if there is a extreme heat event or a drought? Then we need to describe whether we are resilient to that. Another thing to do is to disclose what your assets are, your different operations. So this is an example from Iberdrola, which is another major electricity provider in Spain. So this is part of the TNFD report, and then they disclose where they have the different operations, the megawatts that they are generating, what type of energy source that they are using to generate the electricity, right? So this will be a way to share, these are our operations, and then the investor can say, these areas, okay, are flood prone, or there might be these issues, or they are quite resilient because they have operations everywhere and they can provide the needed electricity even in case of disruption. Then the next one is to assess all those risks, prioritize, the most important risks for my company are such and such, and then how they are going to affect also my value chain, downstream, upstream, and how I'm going to manage them, right? So if I know I have these problems, I'm gonna, for example, the transition risk can be quite high if I'm relying on coal, because there might be some pressures, or there will be a carbon tax. So now I'm gonna transition towards renewables, and then this way I eliminate some of the transition risks. So that's a way to manage the risk to escape. To do that, we need to measure to see how we are improving. So the next section is metrics and targets. So typically, you will measure, I'm affecting this number of species, or I'm having these emissions, my scope 1 to 3 emissions. But then after I implement these risk management operations, I expect my emissions to go down, and then I report how my emissions are going down, or my biodiversity footprint is going down. So I'm managing my risks, and I can report it. Okay. So in the same way that I talk about carbon credits, if you try to reduce impacts on biodiversity, you could generate biodiversity credits. This is a very new concept, but potentially there could be also a very complicated landscape with supply of credits, demand of credits, in the same way that the nature-based climate solution credits for carbon function. These voluntary markets for biodiversity credits are starting to emerge now. Okay, but the the main thing, because these biodiversity credits are very controversial, is to make sure that you don't use them without trying to prevent the impacts on biodiversity first, right? So if you have to develop a new operation site and this site has high impacts on biodiversity, the main thing would be to avoid as much as possible use a different site, right? But if there is no choice, you need to operate that, implement that site, and you're going to have those impacts, then what you need to do is to try to first mitigate the impact as much as possible. And then if there's going to be some losses of biodiversity, you offset with a like for like, right? So if you have to cut 10 hectares of primary forest, then you will need to restore 10 hectares of primary forest. It needs to be the same type of forest, as close as possible to what it happened. Right? And in the same way, yeah, it's the same type of compensation for value change impacts. If you want to be nature-based positive, even nature positive, even better is that you do projects that contribute to nature, even without claiming them as offsets, right? So you just contribute to nature because you want to. The potential is that there could be greenwashing, which would be to not try to mitigate very much, and then when you offset, it's not like for like, right? So you cut a primary forest and then say, oh, now I'm gonna grow a plantation. So that's not the same as the forest. It will not compensate for the forest. Okay, but again, this is something that is being developed now, and it's quite nascent. Okay, I want to finish. I know I covered a lot of things, but I want to finish with some conclusions. The first one, nature-based climate solutions are only a small part of the problem. Nonetheless, it's a big part. It can be like up to 10%. So it can be quite useful. But we have to focus on reducing emissions first, and then we can later think about biodiversity credits and carbon credits. We have to be careful when we buy credits for nature-based climate solutions and make sure that they have integrity. There are ways to check that. And it's important, it's useful to understand how we depend on nature and how we impact nature. And using the TNFD, it can be useful for that. And biodiversity credits are still a bit nascent, but if we want to be nature positive, we can start by supported nature-based climate solution projects, not because we want to offset, but just because we want to be ahead of the rest. Okay, that's everything I have. I hope it was not too fast. Let me know if anybody has a question.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Roman, for the enlightening presentation. It's always inspiring to hear about the innovative ways we can leverage nature in our fight against climate change. If I can summarize the presentation, the nature-based climate solutions are a cornerstone in the global fight against climate change and biodiversity loss. By implementing robust framework and ensuring the integrity of carbon credits, we can harness the full potential of natural ecosystem to create a sustainable and resilient future. Also, we have new ideas to involve our business in becoming nature positive. So, Prof. Roman, actually, we have a lot of questions coming in the chat Q&A chat box, but maybe we will let you take a deep breath, and then we are inviting the participant to join the Sahut. So maybe Mbak Anza, can you explain the detail for joining the quiz? Okay, now we have 20 people coming, and then we are still waiting maybe for 1 minute to let people join. Remember, we have exciting prize for the winner. we can give you free access to the interesting research of Professor Romans next. So the host from PLN Pusdikat will let you know how to access the paper research.
Okay, Kak Lily, currently we have the maximum of 20 participants for the quiz, actually. So maybe we can start now.
Okay, yeah, Mbak Hamza, maybe someone can help to start the quiz.
Okay, we're going to start, yeah? Are you guys ready? Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, good luck. Okay, you guys ready? This is the question number 2. Please answer accordingly and be quick for the highest score. There's like 19 others against you right now. Okay. Okay. Kak Sylvie has been dropped to number 2 by Mbak Dewa, Pelen IP, yeah, right now on the scoreboard. Now the question number 4. Okay, Sylvie is back to the top, yeah, Kak Sylvie. Now the question number 5. Okay, it's interesting, yeah. The scoreboard keeps changing the rank. guys. Go, go. Okay, the winner number 3 is Alda E from PLN Nusantara Power. Second one is Saras. And the first one is, drumroll, Sylvie. Congratulations to the 3 of you. Our team will connect to you soon, okay? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we have arrived at the end of today's knowledge sharing with National University of Singapore. So how was it? It's really fun and insightful and interesting at the same time, right? We all hope this event will give you a valuable knowledge and also
Hello, Mbak Anda.
Hi.
I think we missed the quick. Yeah. I think we still have the Q&A session.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know you are very excited.
That's all. Okay, I get too excited. Okay. So today we still have a Q&A session with Kak Lely as a moderator, guys. So fire away, ask away your question, your excitement about the natural-based solution, yeah? Kak Lely, still the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Azza. So, Prof. Roman, we have a lot of questions coming up, but since we have a limitation of time as well, so I will invite 3 of the participants to deliver the question directly to you. So, firstly, I would like to invite Mas Grimaldi Harinda. Mas Grimaldi, are you still with us in the Zoom? Mas Grimaldi, you can open your camera and mic. Okay, maybe Mas Grimaldi still away. So I will read the question for you, Mr. Proman. So the question is, how can companies effectively integrate nature-related risk into their risk management strategies? That is the first question. And then the second question is, what is the best way to set and track metric and targets related to nature that are relevant to business strategy as suggested in the document? And then, do you want me to read the whole question because he delivered 3 questions right now?
Sorry, shall I reply?
Yeah, so maybe you can answer the 2 first questions first.
Yeah, so the first question, how we can integrate nature metrics into decision making of the company, right? So I think I mean, if we start by monitoring and identifying adequate databases, then we can implement ways that it can be routinely collected the data. And once you have the data, it could be on in the same way we do for emissions. If we are using we are going to discuss the emissions we can do for biodiversity. So what biodiversity are in the sites that we are using, how they are impacted, what is the deforestation that is associated, and then we can routinely make it part of the decision-making process. And then for the second question, sorry, I didn't capture very well.
So for the second question is, what is the best way to set and track metric and targets related to nature that are relevant to business strategy as suggested in the document?
Okay, so the other one, I mean, the metrics and the targets will be related to what are most material for the company. So after you do your ranking of materiality, you say, okay, the most important is how we are affecting this ecosystem or in our supply chain. These are the impacts that we have. And then you set the metrics based on that. Nowadays, there are some tools that are even open online that can help you assess the materiality and suitable metrics. So for your company, it will tell you what are the most important metrics related to utilities, electricity generation, and then you can go and say, okay, these are my different location of my areas on my facilities, and then it will tell you the impact. So that can help you identify the right metrics.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Maybe we can skip the final question from Bimal Biharinda and then answer next. Now we are inviting Mas Fernando Jonas. Mas Fernando Jonas, are you still with us? Mas Fernando Jonas masih bersama kami? Okay, maybe I can read the question for Roman. So the question from Fernando Jonas is, this is interested in discussing CCS and CCUS. So the question is, what are the primary obstacles in scaling up CCS and CCUS technologies from pilot projects to full-scale industrial operation, and how can this be systematically addressed? Maybe Prof. Roman can share, what's your thought regarding the CCS and CCUS development?
Okay, so I mean, just disclaimer, I'm not an expert on CCS, but my understanding is that is very costly. So we are still at a research development phase. So the investment so far they don't pay back. So it's several orders of magnitude more expensive to do carbon capture and to effectively store the carbon, notwithstanding the uncertainty that there might be released later on if there is some instability in the soil in the earth. I think in the future, as the technology improves, as there will be more breakthroughs, I think it will become more impactful and more relevant. My main concern now is that we are running out of time. So we are very close to running out of the carbon budget that we can emit to stay below 1.5 degrees. So if we put a lot of emphasis on technologies that are still being developed, we might miss that opportunity. That's why nature-based climate solutions are affordable, are directly available, and Indonesia has a huge potential. So that's why I think in the current situation, nature-based climate solutions are more important. So every dollar we put into CCS, then we are gonna not put it in other aspects that are already available. So that's my main concern. I don't know how to scale it up. I think there needs to be several R&D breakthroughs for the cost to come down. But I don't know how easy that will be or how many years it will take to have those breakthroughs.
Okay, thank you, Roman, for your answer. Maybe we still have time for one more question. So I would like invite Mbak Saraswati. Mbak Saraswati, can you open your mic and deliver the question directly?
All right. Thank you so much, Mbak Fitri. Hi, Professor Roman. So nice to meet you. And it's such a very, very insightful presentation earlier. Thank you so much. So my question actually about the NBS approach that I believe it sometimes takes time to do so. So my question will be are there any NBS approach that can have an immediate impact? If yes, would you mind to give some examples? And also, would you mind to give us, maybe specifically to PLN, what we can do to apply this approach, NBS approach? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So you are right. The nature-based climate solutions take time, particularly the restoration ones. So mangrove restoration project until you start accumulating carbon might take several years. So that one can be discouraging for investors. Wait 10, 20 years to get the full flow of carbon credits can take time. The ones that have immediate effect are the avoided deforestation. So if you say, oh, they're going to drain this pit, and then you go and say, okay, no, sorry, yeah, we're going to compensate on drain. That one, immediately you are preventing a lot of emissions. So that one is very fast. You can generate the carbon credits very fast. For PLN, I think it could have two ways. I think for nature-based climate solutions, by supporting the communities, helping them generate the credits in a way that they can still maintain their other economic activities, and then preserve also the part of the forest that will provide the cooling services, right? So it keep the community cool, the water clean. So that's a way that you can help neighboring communities, smallholders, to get some extra income. So I think that will be beneficial for the company, because you are going to say, okay, we are contributing to this nature-based climate solutions. We have this carbon neutrality, but also you can generate more engagement with the community. The community will appreciate the company. Maybe that will create more engagement with them. They will be more supportive as well. So I think there's a lot of benefits through there, co-benefits as well, social one. And then, of course, the role in the energy transition. It's not a nature-based climate solution, but I mean, your company plays a fundamental role in the energy transition, right? So if there is some way to blend nature-based climate solution with technology and say, we're going to transition towards, I don't know, solar panels, or we are going to have more wind turbines, and then we're going to combine that with restoration. So it's possible. You can have your wind turbines in areas where you are also restoring the forest, and then it's like a win-win, right? I say, okay, we're going to discontinue some other parts that have more emissions. So slowly you can generate a lot of carbon credits, and it could be very powerful, right? So you guys have a very important role. Is fundamental.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Mbak Lely.
Thank you, Mbak Saras, to deliver the question directly. Oh, okay. So we have the additional time, so I can invite one more participant to deliver the question. Maybe we will. Here we have Mbak Hilda. Do you want to deliver the question directly to Prof. Roman?
Yes, if I may.
Yeah, please, Mbak Hilda.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Prof. For the explanation. It's been a very interesting topics, especially NBS in the energy sector, as our main business is producing electricity. So we already identified one project due to the energy forest for biomass supply as renewable energy source. And we also do that for utilization of idle land. So this year, we are trying to create a framework for NBS for that location near West Java. We hope it goes smoothly this year, and please keep us in your prayer. However, Prof, I want to ask, after seeing your presentation and seeing that we have a noble mission for net zero emission, so I would like to, given the current skepticism skepticism around carbon offset, because like you said at your slide, there are particularly allegation of fraud against organization like Vera. So I want to ask, why should Indonesia especially still consider participating in nature-based solution? Because in your slide we had lots of green area that we can claim that for NBS projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think I mean the controversy is a warning sign that we have to be careful. I don't think it means that we should just forget nature-based climate solutions, because they definitely can be very useful. I think, I mean, nature-based climate solutions, definitely we should do. That one is not controversial. We need to contribute to restore nature, sequester carbon, protect nature. That will help for the nationally determined contribution. The only thing that is a bit controversial is if we try to sell as carbon credits. Then it's when we have to be very careful that there is additionality. But nature-based climate solutions per se, there is no problem, and Indonesia has a huge potential. But I think also it would be fair that developed countries start channeling funds to Indonesia for nature-based climate solutions, and they help contribute to the cost of protecting the forest, of restoring forests, right? I think that would be the fair thing, because they already have been emitting for much longer. I think cannot come and say, no, now you should stop and do the energy transition on your own. They need to contribute, and that would not be controversial. I think Indonesia has a huge potential and of generating high quality credits, and that would be a way to restore this injustice of and contributing for the ecosystem services that Indonesia provides. So I think I will embrace nature-based climate solutions. It can be a very nice source of revenue for the country.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Prof. Roman, since we almost reached the end of our seminar, but we still have more questions. So let me write an email to you to send the question, and then you can answer the question directly, and then we will forward to the participant.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the nice discussion. I enjoy sharing with you, and all the best.
Thank you again, Roman, for sharing the expertise, and to everyone here for great question and participation. I hope you found today's seminar as insightful and inspiring as mine. Let's continue to support and advocate for nature-based solution in our effort to combat climate change. You can contact me or Roman's LinkedIn with any follow-up question. And we will be happy to discuss nature-based climate solution in more detail. So before hands over to you, Mbak Anastasia, I also would like to say thank you so much for the Pusdiklat PLN and also my PLN News College. We have here Mas Gani, Mbak Sakina, and Mas Fadel to supporting us to make this webinar happen. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Hands over to you, Mbak Anastasia.
Okay, thank you Kak Lely and Prof. Roman for the insightful presentation. So how is it, ladies and gentlemen? Is it really fun and insightful, right? Okay, and again, we arrive at the end of today's session, Knowledge Sharing with National University of Singapore. We all hope this event give you a valuable knowledge and also broaden your view about nature-based solution. On behalf of PLN, we extend our deepest gratitude to our distinguished speaker and moderator, as well as PLNers for being a part of this enlightening event. Your presence and active participation have made this event a resounding success. We would like to take this moment to bid our farewell. we sincerely apologize for any shortcomings or mistakes that may have occurred during this event. Before I close the event officially, I would like to tell you a quote from Socrates. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but building the new. Once again, thank you Pak Rio Adrianto, Kak Fitria Leli, and Professor Karsko Roman and PLN Corporate University team. See you at the next knowledge sharing sessions. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
I say you gotta get it rolling, get it right, make it happen, keep it tight, feel electric, come alive, you can do it if you try.
Let's go! While you're sitting around the house doing nothing, then you better hit the streets and get hustling. Bring your energy, summon all your passion, and explode it like a chemical reaction. We need to elevate and give it all we got. We're going all the way until the last stop.
Bring your energy, summon all your passion,
And explode it like a chemical reaction. We need to elevate and give it all we got. We're going all the way
until the last
stop.
Bring your energy, summon all your passion, and explode it like a chemical reaction.
We need to elevate and give it all we got. We're going all the way until the last stop.
You better make a move or make a nada.
None.
So much we're gonna do. I say you gotta
Get it rolling, get it right,
make it happen.
keep it tight,
Feel electric.
come alive
We can do it.
if you try.
Let's go. I'm just tired of the same old
Same
thing.
old thing,
Don't you think that you should step into the
step
ring?
into the ring.
Mix it up a little. Come on, take a
Come
swing.
on, take a swing.
Keep fighting till the bell goes ring.
You may not win, but you can never lose. If you would stand up, come on and light a fuse.
Show everybody you're the whole enchilada. So if you're gonna move, I say you gotta
Get it rolling, get it right, make it happen, keep it tight,
feel electric.
come alive.
We can do it if we try.
Let's go.
You